Hi there, it's Sandy from Crafter's Corner again, your right-handed crochet demonstrator. Right now I'm going to do the solid granny square. It's a free crochet pattern from www.craftpassion.com. So this is what the final product will look like. I really like it. It's tight and compact. The diagonal gaps, once you assemble this into a blanket, will give you great diagonal lines across your finished piece. I think it'll look fabulous. You can switch up the rounds into different colors, or you can do the solid. Today I'm just going to demonstrate the solid in one color. So I'm using Bernat Premium, which is a 4-weight yarn, and I'm using a 5mm boy hook size H. So I'm going to do my slip knot to attach the yarn onto the hook. And again, this is US terms, and I'm assuming that you have prior knowledge of crochet stitches. If you want to go back to the very beginning and learn how to crochet and the terminology and how to read a written pattern, I suggest you go to the classic granny square crochet pattern that's already posted on our YouTube channel. Hope you find that useful, and I hope you enjoy today as well. So for round 1, you do the slip knot onto your hook, and we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, instead of creating a circle or doing a magic knot, we're actually going to double crochet 11 stitches onto the 4th hook, into the 4th hook, the 4th chain from the hook. Oh my goodness. It's one of those days. It's one of those COVID days. Anyway, so we're gonna do 11 double crochets into that very first chain that we made, the farthest one from the hook. So including the initial chain 3, this will make 12 double crochets altogether. So this is number 3 of 12. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and this will be number 12. We can just double check that before we slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, and we're going to slip stitch that to the top of the 3rd chain here. I like to go in under that V, and then you make a slip stitch through both pieces, and that's your circle. Now, we have a hole here, but with that tail, when you weave it in at the end, you can pull that circle tighter, so it'll be like a magic circle almost. So hang on for that until the very end. For now, we'll leave it with the gap, but I promise you that will close up beautifully. So we are going to chain 5 and triple into the same stitch at the beginning of the round. So where we actually slip stitch that together is where we're going to go into with this triple. And we're going to do 2 double crochet in each stitch for the next 2 stitches. So we're not going between the spokes, we're actually going to the top of the double crochet. Oh. We're going to do 2 here. And it says to do it for 2 stitches, so we're going to do 2 into the next one. And then because we're taking a circle and we're squaring it off, we're actually going to do a triple, a chain 2, and a triple into the next stitch. Oops, triple. A chain 2 and a triple into the same stitch. And just like the first side, we're going to do 2 doubles into each of the next 2 stitches. 1 double and 2. Next stitch, 1 double and 2. And we're going to create another corner. So we're going to do a triple, chain 2, and another triple into this next stitch. Notice when I'm making a triple, a longer stitch, I hold the base and then I move my thumb and middle finger up to hold the base of the next stitch, and I go up again to hold the base of the next set of stitches. So once again, we're going to do doubles, 2 in each of the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and 1 and 2. And we're making another corner. So we're going to do triple, chain 2, triple into this next stitch. 1 triple, chain 2, and 1 triple. And we're going to do, 2 doubles into the next 2 stitches each. So 1, 2, and 1, and 2. Now, that initial chain 5 that we did over here is the equivalent of a triple and a chain 2 in that corner. So we're actually going to go into the top of the middle chain, count up from the bottom, 1, 2, and we're going to go into this V at the top of the third chain there. And we're going to slip stitch. So put your hook through, yarn over, pull through that one, and pull through this one. And there we have it. That is round 2 of our solid granny square. So flip the page here, round 3. We're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And and triple into the same chain space at the beginning of the round. Sorry, beg your pardon. We want to slip stitch into the next space. I'm doing this wrong. Okay, so I thought something was fishy there. I'm going to go back and do my second double crochet back here, and I'm going to slip stitch it again into that third chain. And now we're actually going to slip stitch so that we're going into this corner space. There we go. So at this point, this is the beginning of round 3. I'm going to chain 5 now, which is in fact the triple and the chain 2. And I'm going to triple into the same space. So now we're going to do 2 double crochet into the next stitch. And this next stitch, it actually looks like it's part of the chain 2 over here, but that head, because we haven't turned our work, it's actually sort of facing towards the right. So we're going to pull that yarn aside a little bit there with that last triple in the corner, and we're actually going to go into the top of that stitch. So that's 1 and 2, and we're gonna double crochet in each stitch for the next 4 stitches. So we're actually gonna go 1 only into the tops of these. Double crochet, double crochet, only 1 into the next one, 1 into the next one, 1 into the next one, and we've come to the last one before our corner again. We're going to do 2 double crochets into that one, 1 and 2, and then we're going to do our triple chain 2 triple in this next corner. Triple, chain 2, and triple. We're going to repeat that row for the next side. So we're going to do 2 doubles into this first stitch. And we're going to do a double into each of the next 4, 1 only into each. 1, 2, and this is 3 and 4. 2 doubles into the next stitch. And triple chain 2, another triple into the corner. Now if you're going to do color changes, you can plan them for any round you want on this. And sorry, we're doing 2 doubles into this first one. And our other videos demonstrate color changes quite well, so go have a look if you're unfamiliar with that, or stay tuned for the next one I'm going to create and post, which is the circle to square granny square tutorial. So here I'm doing 1 each, double crochet into each of the 4 across this side. We're on the last stitch again, so I'm going to do 2 doubles into this one. once again, triple, chain 2, triple into the corner. We're doing it right into the space. We aren't doing it into those chains. And the first one on the last row, we're going to do 2 doubles into the top of that stitch. One into each of the next 4. Now if you want this tighter, you can certainly use a smaller hook with the heavier yarn, and it will make an even more solid looking granny square than this. Don't forget, we're going to close in that center hole. So this is the last stitch. We're going to do 2 double crochets in there. This is the last stitch for round 1, 2, 3 we're on. Okay. So once again, we're going to slip stitch this into the 3rd chain up from the bottom. Actually, it's the center because there's 5. So 1, 2, and this is the 3rd. Going to go in under the V. Grab the yarn, make a slip stitch, and that's the end of round 4 or round 3. We're about to start 4. So again, we're going to slip stitch into the corner space. That split my yarn. Undo that for a second and tidy this up a bit. Gonna do the slip stitch again into the 3rd chain, and I'm gonna slip stitch right into the hole, into the space, and that moves your yarn over so that it's in where it's supposed to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're gonna triple into the same space. So that's the equivalent of a triple and a chain 2 when you chain that first 5. So with this round, we're gonna do 2 double crochet into the next, just like we did in the last round, and then 1 into each of them across, and repeat the whole thing again. So 2 doubles into this first one. 1 double into the next 8, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then 2 into the last stitch, and then we're going to do triple, chain 2, triple into the corners again. Two double crochet into the first, and 8, 1 into each, five, 6, 7, 8. If you needed to master double crochets, this is the pattern for you. certainly getting some practice in here. We're doing 2 into that last stitch and a triple, chain 2, triple into the corner again. So you can also make this any size you want it to, or sorry, you want to make it. With this formula, you can make this as large or as small as you want. And like I said, do as many color changes in the center of it as you like with each row that we're doing here. If you use a variegated yarn, you wind up with a really cool looking granny square. The colors change as the stitches change. So you can make this look monochromatic and simple. You can make it look more dramatic depending on the yarn that you're using, more dense with a smaller hook than what the yarn calls for. You don't really want it looser and more lacy because it's defeating the purpose of the solid granny square. But yeah, the possibilities are endless with this. This would be a nice one to make a purse with. You can do a lined purse or bag. So I've done 2 into that last one. We're going to do triple chain 2 triple into the last corner for this round. And you really don't want to make any mistakes with this because they'd be highly visible where it's supposed to be a solid granny square. If you missed the doubles in these end stitches, it would show. If you only did 1 single crochet in the corners, it would show, it would pull the work. So when you're doing granny squares and each one of them is, you know, small and concentrated, you want to be as accurate with the stitches as possible. And it's not a whole lot to rip out. If it's just 1 granny square you've made the error on, take it back to where the error is and start again. It's not a big deal. It's not like a circular blanket and you've made a mistake 5 rows back and each row has, you know, 800 stitches in it. This is small and compact and you want it to look neat and tidy. So this is the last stitch. We're going to do 2 double crochets into this one. And you guessed it, we're going to slip stitch into the 3rd chain into the V here. And that is the end of round 4. I can never get it under the second part easily. There we go. We're going to slip stitch back into that corner. And we're on to round 5. So this is 4 rounds. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4, very distinct. It's easy to see on this pattern. And it's simply a matter of repeating again. We're doing a chain 5 for the first treble and chain 2, and we're going to do another treble into the same corner. Now if you wanted to make this even tighter, you might be tempted to only put a chain 1 into the corners, but it really doesn't make for a nice bend in the work. It sort of rounds out the granny square. You can try it if you like, but it's not something that I would recommend. So we're going to do 2 double crochets into the first stitch again. And we're going to do 1 double crochet into each of the next 12 stitches this time, because we keep adding. Every time we go up a round, we've added from the previous round. 2, 3, 4, and notice we haven't turned our work. at all. We're just working on the front of the project through the entire piece. If you decided that you wanted to make a blanket out of this and not attach squares, but just keep expanding the rows and expanding the rows and expanding the rows and making a massive square blanket, you would eventually see that because you're only working on one side of it, the entire square will start to twist. It won't remain square. You will wind up with a twist. That's because you're working the yarn in the same direction every single time. So if you want to do a massive granny square, whether it's a regular granny square, the solid one, whatever you're doing, if you want to make it huge and it's a square, you'll want to take your work and turn it, alternating the rows, working on the back and then working on the front, so that you can avoid that twist. It changes the direction of that very top of every single stitch. You're alternating it, which equals itself out. This way, everything is sort of worked and slanted one way. And when the square is small, you can't tell. But as soon as you get past, I don't know, say around 30, 35, you will definitely start to see that twist and wonder what the heck happened there. Sorry, I'm doing 2 double crochets into this one. I'm talking and I'm losing track. It happens. Especially on these simple patterns, it's really easy for your mind to wander, to lose track of where you are. When it's a more difficult, complex project, you tend to pay attention a little bit more, or at least I do. I kind of get into a rhythm with this and take it for granted that I know what I'm doing without thinking. So we've just done the second corner. I'm going to do 2 double crochets into this first one again. And 12 across, 1 in each. This is our last round that we're working on right now. So at the end of this, I will show you how to tighten up that original circle. You would think, because we were working into one stitch, that one single chain, that would stay tight. But what it's actually done is closed up the chains further up, and that excess yarn has gone down to that initial chain and created a bigger hole. So we do need to go back and tighten that up. There's actually something, if you wanted to tighten this even more, I'll show you give you a little tip here. There's something called a linked double crochet, which would close up these gaps. See, there's a hole there. You can actually go in and grab your yarn there, and then go in and pull up a loop there, and pull through 2, and pull through 2, and it has closed up that hole. That's actually a linked double crochet. That's not what this pattern calls for, but if you want to go to the extreme with tightening this up, that's another way to do it, is doing a linked double crochet instead of just a double crochet. And if you Google that, there's lots of YouTube videos showing you how to do a linked double crochet. So we're down to our last stitch on this side. We're going to do 2 double crochets into the top of this one. And next is the corner, so triple, chain 2, triple, this yarn is so splitty and I don't want to do that. Okay, there we go. And we're going to do 2 doubles into this first stitch again. Second last side. 12 double crochets, 1 in each across. So I decided to use the appropriate size hook with this yarn so that you could hopefully see better where I'm putting the hook into these stitches. If the stitches were tighter, it would be harder to see. So for demonstration purposes, I've kept everything as suggested by the yarn manufacturer. This would make, if you did do it, a little tighter, smaller hook, thicker yarn, however you want to look at it, it would make a great car coat or duster length coat with these solid granny squares. That would make, you know, something certainly spring and autumn worthy for here in Canada. So we're going to do 2 double crochets into this last one on this side. We're going to work the last corner, triple, chain 2 triple, two doubles into the first one, I'm going to re-demonstrate that linked double crochet to you, and I'm going to try to pull my hands up a little closer to the camera here. So to do a linked double, you yarn over, sorry, you don't yarn over. You put your yarn through this cross piece, the diagonal, and pull up a loop. And then you go into your next stitch where you would be putting the double and pull up a loop. Yarn over, pull through those first 2, yarn over and pull through the last 2. And there you've linked those 2 stitches together very tightly. There's no space in between like there is with these other stitches. Those 2 are solidly attached there. So I'm going to undo that because it changes the look. But that is the technique that you use. It's through that diagonal piece and pull up a loop through there, and then into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Sorry for the sirens. I don't know what's going on here. The joys of living in a big city. Said no one ever. So this is the last side. We're coming up to our very first corner again. Thanks for sticking with me through this. I'm not going to edit it so that you're working some of these double crochets on your own and filling in those gaps. I'm actually leaving these up as fairly beginner YouTube videos. Last one, so we're doing 2 into this last stitch. And again, we're finding the 3rd chain here. 2, 4, this is the middle one. We're going through the V, slip stitching that together. And if you wanted to add on to this, absolutely you could carry on. Like I said, at some point I would start flipping it from the beginning. At some point, if you wanted to make it bigger, you could do this facing the front ways, and then you could do the same number of rows flipped over, and then flip the project again and do the same number again. But if you flip it for every single row, it actually gives a better look at the end without having to block your piece. So at this point, if you were joining, you could join this to others. I'm not going to show that today. Right now, I'm going to snip this off, and you simply yarn over and pull all the way through, tighten that up. So I'm going to go back to the back of this And I'm going to show you how to close up that hole. So I have a metal darning needle, a sharp end on it. And we're going to take the needle with your finger on your middle finger on the other side so that you can feel if the needle's poking all the way through or not. And you're going to gather up a few stitches around this circle at a time. Your goal is to come all the way back around to that beginning, going in the one direction. And this is back to the beginning here. I know because I can feel that little knot bump. And we're simply gonna hold it and pull that as tight as we can get it to close up that hole. See, it's gone from a gap to very, very tight. I'm gonna go another stitch or two beyond. And then I'm gonna take the yarn and put it in to the same stitch, that same gap where I came through, but in a different area, and picking up a few fibers so that it has something to catch. And I'm going to work it back the other way. And that will hold that space, that circle, so that it doesn't start to back off and loosen again. So I'm going to do a few stitches here in each section. And then just for good measure, I'm actually going to take the yarn and work it back the other way again. Maybe not the whole circle, but a little bit, to ensure that it's not going to come undone. This is really getting tight, and my hands are very damp from working the yarn, but just keep pulling through. I've actually used pliers before to pull my needle through if it's gotten that tight. So this is my last one, and then I'm going to leave it off there. You can see you've closed that up. This is definitely the back of your work. You can see the backs of the stitches. Whoops, you can see the backs of the stitches. They look very different from the front. And you can also tell at the edges of your work, the tops of the stitches, those little V's, actually kind of face you. If you're looking at the back, you're seeing the bump that's on the back of the stitches, and then you're seeing only the what is the back loop when you're looking from the front. So you can tell that's the back of your work. And there is our square. I'm going to weave in this end as well. And you can see how tight the circle is there now. I'm going to weave in the end to show you, if you were going to join another granny square to this one, you don't want to take this tail and weave it across the tops of all of these stitches, and it sort of tightens them, it makes them smaller, you can't really work into them well. So when you're weaving in that last end, you actually want to take it and work it down through the center of one of the stitches. You can see it's not poking through on the back, and it's a little bit visible from the front, but once you pull that through, it's going to blend. And make sure you give a good tug. Don't shorten the stitch, but make sure that that knot isn't showing up there anymore. And instead of working through the top, you're actually going to work across some of the stitches from that row down below. And it hides everything in really nicely. And again, you want to work in one direction and then take your needle and work it back the other direction. And one more time, you're going to take that and put it in a little bit different area down here and put it through one more time. Give a tug, but don't stress the stitch. And I'm actually, normally I would do this on the back. I can't believe I just worked this on the front. But anyway, I'm going to take it and move it to the back. And then I'm going to snip it off back here. So normally when you weave in, yeah, you would weave in from the back, not the front. But anyway, that's our solid granny square. That's the tutorial for today. And don't forget to do the linked if you would rather do that, and tighten it up even more. And if you want to block this to make it perfectly square, you can measure it out, dampen the square, measure it out, and pin it exactly the way you want it. Pin it with straight pins into those kids' floor mats that are porous that look like big puzzle pieces. They hold pins really well to do blocking. But you would stretch out so that it's all uniform. You would stretch out, put the pins in, and dampen it. Either just wet it under a tap if you want it that wet, or you can use a steamer or a plant sprayer, but moisten it so that it will hold the shape. Leave it pinned until it's dry, and then remove it, and you've got a perfect square. And you wouldn't just pin the corners, you could pin all the sides so that everything is straight. Yeah, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial for the solid granny square. And be sure to check us out, our other videos. Hit like and subscribe, please, if you enjoyed this. And we'll see you again for another one.